Hey there, viewers. The courtroom had seen tension before, but nothing like this. As new footage was played, exposing details no one had seen until now, the entire room went silent. No whispers, no reactions, just shock. Let's get into it. The preservation box. My name's Jillian, and I'm a federal archive intern, even though I like to joke that I'm more of a glorified sorter. I clock in around 7:45 every morning, badge in through the underground security bay, toss my coat on the hook by the break room that smells like old microwaved beef, and go straight to intake. The lower Manhattan processing facility isn't glamorous. It's beige walls, concrete floors, and no windows unless you count the narrow slits of frosted glass in the security corridor. Still, it's quiet work, and quiet suits me. I don't have to talk much. Most people here just want to get through the day without bumping into anything classified. The Tuesday it happened didn't start any different than usual. I had my thermos of coffee, my ID scan went green on the first try, and the docket queue was manageable. Intake had 3 incoming boxes marked U.S. Marshals Property Transfer. 2 were standard evidence folders, brown tape, white labels, docket stamps. But the third was strange. It was tall, heavier than it looked, and made of a matte Thecmic polymer. No visible seams. The label on it didn't look like anything I'd seen before. Just 5 words centered in capital letters. Playback class. For do not fly. No docket number, no agency reference. Just that. I stared at it a while. Usually things like that come with a whole file packet. Forms, signatures, half a dozen barcode stickers. But this one had only a handwritten slip taped to the top. On it, in tight all-caps handwriting, TR-HIV intake 7E//trial, 37,452.54. I recognized the trial number. Everyone in the building did. The sealed trial. The one tied to Sean Combs, though no one was ever allowed to say it out loud in the facility. People called it the archive job, or just the submission. I'd never worked directly on it. Just heard rumors. Strange formats. Confidential motion logs. Files that couldn't be copied, only viewed once. And now, apparently, this box. I checked the docket intake schedule. No mention of a Playback Class 5 unit. Nothing scheduled from U.S. Marshals on this date, which meant it was either misfiled, misrouted, or, which was worse, off record. Still, chain of custody protocol meant I had to at least log it and photograph it. I brought it to Station 3, which was equipped with a static-free surface and an isolated network terminal. I didn't tell my supervisor. He was off the floor anyway, probably upstairs prepping courtroom submissions. I figured I'd just catalog it and send a clarification request up the chain. But when I opened the box, I stopped breathing for a second. It wasn't a tape, it wasn't even a traditional drive. Inside was something I'd never seen. A smooth black disc, the size of a dinner plate, connected to what looked like a portable cradle with no power source. There was no label, no port, just a faint, continuous hum. I held my phone up to take the initial evidence photo, and the lens wouldn't focus. The box had a slight vibration under my fingertips. Like it was alive. I don't mean that in a sci-fi way. I mean it literally vibrated. Just a little. Like a power line running under your palm. The cradle had a single cable, like a coaxial input, designed for terminals older than what we usually used. I had to dig around to find a legacy adapter just to plug it in. When I did, the screen didn't show any files. It didn't boot with a menu or load a playback interface. It just flashed a line in yellow text across the black background. Exercise, however it has been defined and studied, may be said to force 37,452.54. Then it started playing. I didn't press anything, I didn't give it a command. What I saw was Nothing at first. Just a static hallway, dim light, the kind you see in cheap motels or storage facilities, where the fluorescents flicker and the corners blur. A figure walked into frame. Could have been a man. The frame rate was jumpy. His head was down. He paced slowly, like he was waiting, or thinking. Then he looked up toward the camera, or maybe just the ceiling, and the feed glitched. Suddenly there was text across the bottom of the screen. Not audio, just text, as if the system was auto-generating subtitles. I clicked stop. Nothing happened. I clicked again. The screen went black. My heart was pounding. I knew I wasn't supposed to view any evidence without clearance, especially not this. But the system had launched on its own. That had to count for something, right? I tried to delete the temporary file from the system buffer. There wasn't one. Nothing had saved. The playback disappeared as soon as it ended. I sat there for a long time, just staring at the terminal. I told myself I didn't see anything. Not really. Just a flicker. A test feed. Could have been a glitch. Could have been a placeholder. That's what I wrote in the notes. Call sent interference, possibly corrupted dummy feed. I boxed it back up, marked it for upper vault review only, no photo attached. I didn't tell anyone. That night, I stayed late. I couldn't focus. Kept thinking about the figure in the hallway, the pacing, the way he turned his head, slow and deliberate, like he knew the camera was there, like he wanted to be seen. But then, why the silence? There was something even worse than the screen's subtitles. It was the pause after them. The text just sat there, white on black, like it was waiting for someone to notice what wasn't being said. I got home around midnight. I didn't sleep much. The next morning, I logged into my workstation early. Same terminal, same station. The black box was already collected, probably sent up to Vault B for redaction or review. But my screen wasn't the same. There was a new line of text on the login terminal. It wasn't typed by me. It wasn't there before. In plain gray font, just hovering above the usual login box. You filed the silence. Now silence remembers you. I logged out, logged back in. It was gone. I didn't tell anyone that either. I still don't know if I was supposed to see it. The footage, the message, any of it. Maybe the system had a test routine nobody knew about. Maybe it was an AI-generated interface testing transcript recognition. Maybe. That's what I tell myself. But part of me knows it wasn't a test. Part of me knows it wasn't meant to play. Not like that. That hallway wasn't just some storage footage. It was recorded from someone's memory. You could feel it. The way the camera didn't move like a machine. It pulsed like breath. Like something remembered it too. And whatever was in that footage, it wasn't done playing. Chapter 2. Playback request denied. My name's Kinsey. Been working federal evidence intake for 12 years now, mostly out of the Third Circuit filing office. I don't wear a badge or a gun. Just a key card, a plastic chair with uneven legs, and a back full of knots from sorting endless drives, discs, and cloud-stamped playback links that no one ever watches. Half of them are junk, mislabeled footage, corrupted witness testimony, files missing audio or overlaying multiple camera feeds from unrelated cases. My job is to clean all that up before it makes its way to chambers, before a judge ever lays eyes on it. Lately, though, nothing's been cleaning up easy, especially not anything tagged with the number 37,452-54. Every tech on this floor knows that docket. It's the one nobody says out loud. The one with half the folders marked in red vinyl and the other half sealed in manila with no return address. We call it the Tower case. Not because it has anything to do with Tower, but because it's the kind of case that climbs over every protocol you thought you understood. I was given a work order last Friday. Prep all video evidence from the March 2024 raid on the subject's California residence. That raid pulled in 2 vaults worth of seized materials. Hard drives, encrypted laptops, analog security tapes, even a few memory cards stored in baby oil bottles. No joke, all of it marked high sensitivity. But the order that stood out was this: exclude anything with unstable visual cues. That's unusual language for a federal submission. Usually they tell you to remove duplicates, redact minors, check for personally identifiable details. But unstable visuals? That's a new one. I pulled the first tray of drives that matched the timestamp range. Most of it was surveillance. Bathroom cams, bedroom hallway monitors, some motion-stricken infrared junk. One stood out. Small, black, dusty. No barcode, no label. It had been slotted in between 2 USB sticks with updated metadata, but this one had none. I plugged it into the offline terminal just to see if anything registered. The terminal booted and the drive labeled itself VHS, Emulation Core, CAS, _6B. There was no playback menu. It started on its own. No splash screen, no time bar, no volume controls. Just video. The screen flickered with tracking lines, not digital artifacting, actual analog-style tracking, like an old tape in a busted VCR. It showed a hotel hallway, dimly lit, carpet with red geometric patterns, beige walls. The timestamp glitched every few seconds, alternating between July 14, 2016 and no time code found. 2 people appeared in the footage, one standing, one curled up against the wall. Their faces were blurred, like someone had smeared Vaseline over the lens. But it wasn't censorship. It looked more like the footage had forgotten their faces. The figure standing stepped forward. Something moved. Fast, like a shove or a kick. The second figure jolted. Their arms flailed, trying to cover their head. The screen fuzzed. Then came the text. Audio, no sound at all. Just white letters in the lower third. I leaned back. I don't know why I didn't stop the playback. Maybe because there was no stop button. Maybe because some part of me thought I'd be able to scrub through, take a clip, submit the snippet as a visual reference. But then the camera shifted. I saw the floor glossy tile, wet from a spilled drink, or just poor maintenance. And in the tile's reflection, just for a second, I saw a man's silhouette. Not the face, just the outline. The posture, the unmistakable build of someone powerful, looming. It looked like Sean Combs, but not directly, not clear enough for a judge to see, only as a ghost in reflection. And that's the thing, you couldn't say it was him for sure. The camera never captured him directly, the metadata never confirmed identity, but it was labeled Session Cassandra V. I didn't need a map to figure out who that referred to. I tried to close the file. The system locked up. Then, a line of code flashed on the log output window. Playback subject, Kinsey _. I stared at it. That's my system ID. It ran a diagnostic on the file. It didn't come from the March raid, at least not officially. Its creation date was listed as unknown. Last access, today. Playback permissions. Viewer match only. What does that mean, viewer match? I copied the playback log to a secure document and printed it. Then I tried to delete the file. The drive unmounted itself before the deletion command could finish. I removed it, checked the input history. The terminal said no external devices had been connected in the last 48 hours. I checked again. Same result. I sat back, sweating a little. The room felt warm. My hands tingled like I'd just touched static. I boxed the drive back up and attached a physical note to the folder. Unstable memory / file position without owner. Submit on paper only. Playback inadvisable. I didn't file it to the judge's digital portal, I filed it manually. Paper form, witness intake cover sheet. analog transfer receipt. I went home early that night, but sleep didn't come. I had a dream, or maybe a memory. Hard to tell the difference now. I was in a courtroom. It was mostly empty. Judge's bench at the front, wood paneling, seal of the United States above the flags, one light on. There was a screen like a projector screen hanging behind the bench. It flickered. Footage began to play. It was that same hotel hallway, same spilled drink, same wet tile. But now there were dozens of figures, not people, just shadows moving across the screen. I turned around, the seats were full. All the faces were blank, like mannequins, except one, mine. I was watching myself watch the playback. The man in the reflection stepped forward again. The shadow raised an arm. The screen turned off, and the judge, who I hadn't looked at until that moment, leaned forward. Where the judge's face should have been, there was a mirror. And in it, again, I saw me, watching, remembering. Chapter 3, Cycle Witness. Jane. They tell me I'm not alone, but I've never felt more sealed off from the world than I do in this room. Room B is quiet in a way that feels wrong, like the air's been vacuumed out of it. The ceiling light buzzes sometimes, just low enough to make your ears ring. There's no window, no clock, just the surveillance dome in the corner, blinking red every few seconds like it's counting down to something I don't understand. They say I'm part of something called the Cycle Witness Program. Special protocol. High-profile case, high-risk memory interference. They don't explain that last part. They never really say what they think happened to me, only that I need protection, that I've been relocated 5 times in 2 years, that my statements will be sealed, that my name, my real name, won't be uttered in court. They call me Jane now, Jane V, like I'm a variable in a math problem someone else is trying to solve. Today is my prep day. Testimonies tomorrow. Today is where they walk me through what I'm supposed to remember. They've tried to say it gentler than that, but that's what it is. A memory check. A timeline rehearsal. A matching game between me and my own past. Agent Santos sits across from me, hands folded. She doesn't speak unless I speak first. That's her thing. She lets me open the door. So I do. Can we skip the photos this time? She shakes her head once. You don't have to talk. Just look. The first image is black and white. Looks like a basement. Concrete floor. Graffiti on the back wall. A swirl of curved arrows and sharp slashes. I recognize the shape. They call it the spiral room. I've never been there, I say. Next photo. A hallway lit by antique sconces, the wallpapers peeling in places. There's something off about the floor. It reflects light too cleanly, like it's been buffed every hour. Third photo. This one hits me harder. A velvet curtain, deep red, pulled aside to show what looks like a room full of cushions and low lights. A hookah pipe on the table. A black camera rig in the corner, half covered by a silk throw. I blink and my eyes burn. I feel a pinprick behind them. Not pain. Just the kind of tight pressure you get when you're trying to remember a dream before it slips away. I don't know that place, I say, but my voice cracks. Santos watches, says nothing. They move to the video stills. Each one is a freeze frame from handheld recordings dated years apart, all tagged session recordings. Some are shaky, like someone walking quickly. Others are stills from a corner of a room, always dimly lit, always without audio. Then one frame holds longer. I'm in the picture. I don't remember the dress I'm wearing. I don't remember the folder in my hands, thick, black, almost like a binder. But I see my own face and I know it's not fake, it's not photoshopped. It's me, and I'm walking into the tunnel. Behind me, in the background, someone follows, half obscured. Bald head, broad shoulders, rings on his fingers. Bones. They don't breathe for a full 10 seconds. I never went in there. I say, I wouldn't have. That's not. My hands are shaking. They let me sit in silence for a while. I think Santos is waiting for me to say more, but I don't have more, not without losing something. Then she does something different. She presses a button, the lights dim, and a playback screen lowers behind her. One of the handheld videos starts. Full motion, no timestamp. It's not a scene, it's not even a room. It's me, again, sitting in a chair, looking to my left like I'm being spoken to, but there's no audio. The camera pans too slowly. It's trying to frame me the way you'd frame someone you're about to document, not casually, purposefully. There's a close-up. I have the folder in my lap. My fingers trace the corner nervously. The text on the screen appears in white. The camera shakes, then stops. I flinch. On screen. My body tenses in a way I've seen in old trauma tapes. You know what's about to happen, but you can't move yet. Then the screen cuts to black. I'm crying. Santos doesn't write anything down. She's not one of those note-taking types. She's the kind who remembers it all. She leans forward a little. Is this an authentic memory? She asks. I take a full minute before I can answer. I don't remember being filmed, I say. But that's me. That's my fear. That's real. The room stays still. The buzz in the light stops, like the power has dipped for a second. Then, softly, a noise I wasn't expecting. The audio returns. Not the whole thing, just one phrase. Low, warped, played from somewhere behind the screen, not through the speakers. A man's voice, familiar, muted. Play her again. The words don't belong to any official court record. Her eyes flick up to the red dome light above us. They're not part of any testimonial submission. Still watching. She presses a button under the table. She says, "The screen lifts. The room goes bright again." I'm staring at the chair I was just sitting in. The way the cushion holds its shape. The way the red light above me casts a shadow on the floor, the same shape, the same position as in the video still. It's not a copy. It's not a recreation. It's the same room. The footage wasn't shot somewhere else. It was filmed right here. And I was already part of it. Chapter 4. The jury room has no clocks. They said it was a civic duty, a cornerstone of democracy. I didn't argue. I never argue. I nodded at the selection officer, filled out the form with my best pen, and left the medical exceptions line blank. Truth is, I don't get out much anymore, and the courthouse felt like the first building I'd been inside in months that didn't smell like liniment or boiled cabbage. They assigned me juror number 6. 12 of us, plus alternates, boxed into a paneled room with velvet-backed chairs and 2 clean carpet. They told us we'd be sequestered for our own clarity, that public opinion was volatile, and that we'd only be shown what the court deemed admissible. That sounded fine to me. I've lived long enough to know most people only see what they're shown. What they didn't say was this: there are no clocks in the jury room. No wall clock, no desk clock, no watches allowed. They took our phones, of course, locked them in gray pouches, handed them to a bailiff with big hands and a voice like sandpaper. "You'll get these back when we break," he said. But the breaks never came at regular intervals. I still had one thing left: a wristwatch. Analog, leather band. Gift from my daughter the Christmas after her first promotion. I didn't wear it on my wrist. I looped it through the hem of my jacket and slid it under the table. I checked it when we began, exactly 10 o'clock AM. That was the moment they began Playback. They didn't give us context. No introduction, no narration, no warning. Just dimmed lights and a projection screen showing a hotel hallway. Dim light. Geometric carpet, Red-brown walls, a spill on the tile floor, or maybe a shadow. No timestamp, just silent movement. The footage played slow, like it had been stretched thin, like a dream dragging itself across the finish line. At first I thought I was dozing. Time was sticky, thick in my throat. I blinked hard, looked at the others. No one spoke, all eyes on the screen. The man appeared. Tall, head down, heavy coat dragging at the shoulders. He walked towards something we couldn't see, then stopped and looked up. There was no audio. I glanced at my watch. Still 10 o'clock. Couldn't be right. I tapped the crystal. Still 10 o'clock. The screen flickered. A fly buzzed through the room. Real, not part of the playback. It passed in front of my face, landed on the table, rubbed its legs together like it was watching too. Then darkness. The footage cut out. A court officer told us that was enough for now, that the footage was inconclusive, that we'd be seeing more throughout the week. No verdict needed yet. I stood. My knees cracked. I stretched and glanced toward the wall. No clock. The hallway we passed on the way out had 3 paintings, abstract shapes, possibly meant to be calming, but still no clocks. In the deliberation room, one of the younger jurors whispered something. I didn't catch it at first, so I leaned closer. She repeated herself, barely moving her lips. I saw something that wasn't there. I nodded, not because I agreed, but because I'd been thinking the same thing. The lunch, if that's what you could call the boxed meal they slid under the door. I took out a napkin and started sketching. Just the hallway. The spilled drink. The way the man had looked up. And then, almost without meaning to, I drew the floor. Heard the tile. And in one of the glossy patches I started to shade in a reflection. What came out wasn't his face. It was mine. I paused, stared at it. The angle was wrong. There was no way the camera could have picked me up. I was a juror, watching from a chair, not walking the hallway in some old hotel. But the reflection was mine. I saw the glasses, the shape of my ear, the scar above my right eyebrow I got falling off a porch swing when I was 10. The fly buzzed past again. Same time, same moment, same low hum in the wall like the building itself was vibrating. That night, back in the hotel where they kept us, I asked for a notepad. They gave me one. Clean, spiral-bound, government-issued. I flipped through it, all pages blank, until I reached the back. Last page. There was already writing there. Not in my head, not in anyone's I recognized. A single line, written in thin black ink. You were never asked to judge him. You were asked to remember what he made you forget. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't cross it out. I didn't tear it out. I just closed the pad and set it under my pillow. And for the first time in all my years, through wars and weddings, births and funerals, decades of newspapers and static, I realized there are some kinds of memory that aren't yours until someone gives them back to you. And some truths don't need to be remembered to be real. Chapter 5. Admittance Error. 553. They don't really notice me, which is perfect. My name's Mona Decker, and I sit behind a frosted glass wall in a booth above Courtroom 6A, monitoring audio feeds and syncing pre-cleared video evidence to the projection interface. Nobody claps when I fix a corrupt timestamp. Nobody thanks me when I blur a face at the last second. And when the mics squeal, guess whose name isn't mentioned? But it's fine. I like working invisible. I like hearing things I'm not supposed to. It's quiet work. Until it isn't. The morning it happened, Judge Subramanian had asked for 3 pieces of media to be prepared in order. The 2016 hotel hallway footage, a drone flyover of Combs's property post-raid, and 1 security cam loop labeled Back Gallery 2023. That last one had heavy redactions. I'd reviewed it twice, just to make sure the incident in the background and leak into foreground motion. Everything had been queued, boxed, tagged, verified, or so I thought. At 8:43 a.m., while calibrating the live feed, a fourth video popped into the queue. No request, no attached ID, no pre-clearance. Just a file labeled Old Footage B, Tunnel Cam 3. That naming format didn't match anything in the docket logs. I figured it might be residual data from a batch upload or a misnamed placeholder left in the cloud cache. So I deleted it. It reappeared 6 seconds later. Same name, same timestamp. I tried to quarantine it from the main display system, redirecting it to my local drive for private review. But the file had already integrated itself into the morning's courtroom projection schedule. I didn't authorize that. Nobody did. Worse, it had assigned itself a playback timestamp matching 10:05 REM, which was 2 minutes after the judge's opening statement was scheduled to end. The file name changed again. Now it read, Live Feed Sync 10:05, Exhibit Rec. I ran an audit command. The file showed no upload history, no originating drive. Its creation field was blank, like it didn't come from a device, it had just always been there. Still, I clicked to preview. My screen pixelated. Static flooded in, not audio-visual. Like snow on an old TV screen, only this was sharper, deeper. The blackness had texture, almost like you were looking at a velvet curtain underwater. And then it cut to the room. A black room. Cold tile floor, low ceiling. No fixtures, just a single point of light coming from a handheld camera flash, blinking in intervals, as if someone was pressing the button manually. In the center of the room, a woman sat strapped to a chair. Pixelation obscured her face. You couldn't tell her age, you couldn't tell if she was moving. The flash lit up only parts of her, frame by frame. Sometimes you saw her arm flinch, sometimes a lock of hair. Always isolated, always incomplete. I couldn't see the person filming until one frame flashed with more intensity than the others. In that second, you saw it. The red glove on the left hand of whoever held the camera. Bright red, not blood, fabric. Like the kind we use to seal evidence bags. Every time I've packaged a drive or sealed a subpoenaed laptop, I've worn one. The gloves are standard issue for contamination control, but we don't leave them behind. We don't wear them when handling court media. And whoever was behind the camera had it on during recording. I tried to pause the video. Nothing happened. I tried to crash the preview. The system wouldn't respond. So I pulled the plug on the terminal. The screen went dark, but only for a second. Then it powered back on without rebooting and continued the feed. I'd never seen that before. Not once. That's when I radioed the bailiff, told him Playback was malfunctioning and to hold courtroom projection for a minute. He said, "It's already playing." But in the room, it's live. I leaned forward and looked through the frosted glass. The courtroom was silent. They weren't reacting, not gasping, not whispering, just sitting, watching. Judge Subramanian had his hands folded. The defense attorney was frozen in place. One of the jurors had their mouth slightly open, like they'd started to say something but never finished. The image on the main screen was identical to mine. Black room, woman in chair, flash popping. But the feed had changed again. It was no longer from Tunnel Cam 3. Now the file was labeled Courtroom Playback Admittance Error 553. The woman's figure was still pixelated, but the figure behind the camera, the one with the red glove, had stepped slightly into the frame. Not enough to identify, but enough to show position. The way they leaned, the way they tilted the lens. Like they were conducting something, like this wasn't surveillance, it was orchestration. I couldn't stop the feed, nobody could. It ran for precisely 3 minutes, then cut to black. No sound, no notice. The judge called recess without comment. Court security swept the systems and said it was a data overlap, that some misfiled segment from a leaked trial docuseries had spliced in. But we weren't using internet-connected media. Everything had been pulled from local drive. Back in the booth, I sat in the dark for a while. Then my terminal powered on again. By itself. A black screen. One line of text, centered in white. No cursor, no header, just a message. Footage didn't expose him. It exposed Playback itself. I didn't type it. I didn't respond. But I understood. This wasn't about the person in the chair. It wasn't about guilt or innocence. And it wasn't even about what he did. It was about what the camera remembered, and what it made us remember, just by watching. Now that the footage had played, it had us in it too. Chapter 6. Diddy's face wasn't there. I've drawn murderers, thieves, politicians, parents, once even a priest. I've been a courtroom sketch artist for 32 years, and if I'm being honest, there's very little that still surprises me. The faces change, but the posture's always the same. Stiff in the chair, spine like a question mark, hands either folded or clenched. Most of them look straight ahead, like they're trying not to breathe too loud. Some stare at the jury. Some glance up at me. Nervous, curious, almost like they know I'm the last person who will ever record them in pen. But this case, it's been different since day one. The moment I stepped into the gallery on the first day of testimony, something felt off. Not wrong, just displaced, like the room had been set 1 inch too far to the left and nobody else noticed. The air moved slower, sound carried differently. I know how a courtroom breathes. This one held its breath. I've sketched Sean Combs every day since trial began, or tried to. The first time, my pencil skated across the page like usual. I got the shape of the shoulders, the cut of the suit, the positioning of the hands, easy enough. But the moment I moved to the face, that's when it started. My pencil slipped. Not dramatically, not some grand snap or tear, just a gentle pull. Like my hand forgot how to anchor itself, I ended up with a smear where his eyes should have been. I tore the page out, started again. Same thing. Face came out too narrow or too wide, eyebrows never aligned. Once the entire face came out mirrored, like someone had flipped it in a photo editing app. I never draw like that. My hand doesn't work that way. At first, I thought I was nervous. It happens. Big trials get under the skin. But then I noticed something else. Every other person came out perfectly. Jane's posture, the way she kept her eyes down, how her hands clutched the side of the witness stand, crystal clear. Cassie's face, the tightness at the jaw, the quiet defiance, flawless. Even the lawyers, the bailiffs, Judge Subramanian himself, all of them accurate. Only him, only Combs. I kept going anyway. You don't stop just because something doesn't land the way it should. You keep working. Layer the sketch, shade around the mistake. Sometimes absence says more than the thing itself. It wasn't until I flipped through my full collection, 2 weeks worth of drawings, that I noticed her. The girl. At first, I thought she was part of the crowd, maybe a young reporter or a family member of one of the victims. But I couldn't find her in the seating chart. She wasn't listed on any attendance roster. Security hadn't logged her in. Yet there she was, in every sketch. Always in the corner of the courtroom. Always small. Always holding a camera. Sometimes she was sketching, sometimes just standing, but always present. I zoomed in on one of the pages and traced the shape of the book in her hands. It was a sketch pad, and across the top corner of the page she held, there was a signature. Mine, not just a forgery. My exact handwriting, the little curl I do on the R, the slope of the final A. It was my signature, drawn inside the sketch pad she was holding. Inside the sketch I had drawn. My hands went cold. I flipped back through older pages. Same thing. Different angles, different courtroom scenes, but she was always there. In the margins, in the far back row. Once, standing near the doorway, looking straight out at me. No one else had ever noticed her. At recess, I didn't get up right away. I just sat there flipping pages like they were parts of a puzzle I'd never seen assembled before. That's when the man in the federal jacket approached me. His badge was flipped inward, unreadable. He didn't give a name. "May I review your sketches?" He said it like it wasn't a question. I hesitated, but handed them over. He didn't ask for all of them, just the last few. He stopped on the one from today, where Combs sat still at the table, head slightly down, and in the far corner, the girl, same as ever, stood by the gallery doors, her camera at her chest, a line of red light glowing faintly from its lens. The man stared at it a moment, then nodded. Just once, silently. He handed the sketchbook back to me and left without another word. I didn't sketch for the rest of the break. When the court resumed, I pulled a new sheet from the pad. Clean. No pencil marks yet. Just the empty rectangle of a courtroom waiting to be filled. But no one came in. I don't mean they were late. I mean, the people were there, but the image wouldn't form. I started sketching instinctively. Benches, the stand, the overhead lights. But the chairs were empty. Every line I drew turned inward. The room curved the wrong way. By the time I looked down, I realized what I'd drawn. It wasn't this courtroom. It was another courtroom, identical, but skewed. No faces, just one massive playback screen at the front of the room, glowing faintly. And on that screen, the image of a courtroom again. The same one. The one I was in. I saw myself sitting behind my sketch pad. And in the upper corner, barely visible in the reflection of the playback monitor, the girl stood again. Closer now, looking at me. Not smiling, not angry, just present, like she'd always been there. I whispered the words before I could stop myself. We were never drawing him, we were drawing us. The pencil fell out of my hand, and the red light in the courtroom flickered once, just enough for her outline to vanish. But I know what I saw. I know who remembers this. Chapter 7. The playback that leaked itself. Speaker ID unknown. Voice analysis inconclusive. Podcast title metadata redacted. Episode never published. I'm not going to give you my name. You've probably heard it before. Probably not in connection with this case. Doesn't matter now. What matters is the file. The one no one was supposed to see. The one I didn't steal, didn't hack, didn't even download. It just appeared. I was working late on a side edit, a retrospective episode on the use of sealed footage in high-profile trials. Mostly a think piece, nothing radical. But around 2:40 a.m., my editing software froze, the waveform vanished, the screen went black. Then it started playing something else. Not from my hard drive. No header, no metadata, just raw video. It began in what I now recognize as the underground passageways beneath the Combs estate. I've seen the blueprints, seen the leaked photos from that 2024 raid. This was deeper, less polished, cruder walls, no paint, no decorative paneling, just stone, exposed conduit, and concrete that echoed when anyone breathed too hard. The camera didn't move. It was stationary, mounted to the ceiling or affixed to a corner. There was no zoom, no voice. But then, 3 women walked into the frame. 2 younger, 1 older, maybe late 30s, maybe early 40s, moving slow, eyes darting everywhere. You could tell the place made her skin crawl. One of the younger ones whispered something and the older woman froze. I didn't hear it, there was no audio, but the subtitles were hard-coded onto the image. The other two didn't. They moved forward, down a curved corridor, barely lit by soft ground lighting. It was hard to make out where it led, but the walls began to change, from cinder block to something almost organic, smoother, darker, like old skin polished over time. Then, in the next frame, they were gone. The hallway was empty again, until the camera caught a movement. A shape reflected in the polished floor tiles. The source of the reflection wasn't one of the women. It was someone else. Someone holding a small camera rig, palm-sized, circular lens with a ring of soft white light around it, a kind of light used for up-close face recording, like for interviews or confessionals. There was no mistaking it. The rig wasn't part of the security system. It was handheld. The reflection showed the ring blinking on and off, like it was syncing with a biometric sensor. I paused the playback. I sat for a long time, just watching the frozen frame. The hallway was empty again. The girls were gone. Only the camera remained in the reflection, pointed at nothing, like it was still recording absence. I tried to trace the file path. Couldn't. Tried to save the stream. It refused. Tried to reroute it to my audio input chain. The whole system rejected it. But the video kept playing, frame by frame, looping silently behind all my open windows. Eventually, I gave up on stopping it and just started recording myself. You're hearing this because that was the only way I could make it real. I started describing what I saw as it looped again. Tunnel entrance, the red arch above the threshold, one woman looking back, two moving forward. Camera light blinks. And then this, and I want to get it right because this is where it started to feel wrong. On the third loop, there was a fourth figure, only visible in the reflection of the ring light itself, barely there, just a shoulder, maybe part of a hand. But it wasn't any of the women, and it wasn't the cameraman. I know this sounds impossible, but the reflection was showing a viewer, and when watching the footage from a distance, like it had embedded the act of watching into itself. That's when I realized this wasn't evidence. This wasn't even surveillance. This was ritual. The way it looped, the way it displayed faces only once, the way the women's footsteps never made sound, but the camera blink was always perfect. This was curated forgetting, something designed not to prove anything but to frame you in the act of looking. I stopped the playback, the file vanished. But now, I can't forget it. And here's what scares me. Since that night, every time I open my editing suite, the splash screen flashes the phrase, "Playback ready, session incomplete." It's not part of the software, it's not in the code. It's just there, waiting. You wanted exposure. What you got was playback, and playback remembers you. Note, no voice match, no source metadata. File registered as cyclecast. Unindexed. Submitted by unknown party via encrypted drop point. No follow-up possible. Chapter 8. He wasn't the footage. He was the playback. Floor B7 isn't marked on any public directory. If you didn't know it existed, you'd walk right past the elevator key slot, miss the locked panel that hides the staircase, and never feel the cooler air rising up from the sub-basement. There's no cell service down here, no Wi-Fi, just a row of filing cabinets so old they moan when you touch them, and a single desktop terminal with a terminal green glow that's always on, even when everything else is off. That's where I work. I'm not important. I'm not trained in law. I didn't follow the trial. My job is simple. Finalize case materials once the proceedings are done. Label, file, archive, move on. But this one's different. Case 37,452 through 54 was flagged retain under indefinite closed status. A verdict was reached, supposedly, but no summary was filed. No audio transcript, no public record, just silence. And then today, 3 weeks after the last mention in our system, I receive a box. No return label, no courier slip, just my name, handwritten carefully on the lid. Inside it, a sketch pad, thick with charcoal drawings. The name Rosa signed on the corner of each page. A single red glove, folded neatly and still faintly smelling of latex and dust. A sealed VHS emulator, the kind we stopped using over a decade ago. And a paper file. Not a PDF, not a USB. A paper file, cream-colored, yellowed at the edges. The title on the cover reads, Final Playback, Session 10. Viewer designate you. My hand hesitates as I lift it. My pulse is steady, but my fingers twitch like they've already seen what's inside. I connect the VHS emulator to the archival terminal. Takes a moment. The machine hums like it hasn't woken up in years. Then, without any input, the screen activates. Playback initialized. Session 10. Do not close. There's no sound, no context. But the footage isn't what I expected. It doesn't show a crime, doesn't show Diddy, doesn't show the spiral tunnels, or the red curtains, or the black rooms people whispered about. It shows, one by one, still frames, slow, gentle transitions. A woman in a blue blazer, tears at the corners of her eyes. A juror, face lit by courtroom light, staring forward as if waiting for something to make sense. A technician biting her lip in a control booth. A sketch artist, hands covered in graphite, eyes wide as though she's just recognized herself on the page. The anonymous podcaster, I recognize his voice from the leaked audio, eyes half closed like he's bracing for something that already passed. In others, dozens, maybe hundreds, all the people who watched. Some in court, some through sealed feeds, some who only saw fragments but felt the weight of them. And then, there I am, sitting at this very desk. The screen shows me from an angle I can't account for, just over my shoulder, watching my eyes widen, watching me reach for the red glove but stop just short, watching me realize. I try to shut the terminal off. No response. I unplug the emulator. The screen stays on. Then the words begin to type themselves. Slow. Methodical. You archived him. You filed silence. Dated. You became the playback. My chest tightens. I don't know what that means, not exactly, but I feel it. In my skin, in my teeth, in the way the air feels heavy now, like something's pressing down from above. The room flickers. The light above my head buzzes once, then dims for a moment. I look at the sketch pad, flip to the last page. It's blank. I stare. Then, faintly, a line begins to draw itself, not with a pencil, not ink, just appearing, like it's soaking up through the paper from underneath. Pours a hand, then a desk, then a screen, then a face. My face? The drawing is perfect, and in the sketch I'm staring at a playback monitor that shows a courtroom. And in that courtroom, there's another version of me, looking up, mouth slightly open, like I've just realized that nothing I've seen was about him. That it was always about us, and about who watched, about who remembered, and what memory turns into when it's given shape and screens and ritual. The terminal screen flashes one final line. Verdict rendered. Playback begins. I don't look away. I can't, because the sketch is still drawing, and the playback never ends.